Are those improvements going to help you from a personal income tax writing off perspective when you file your income tax for that year end that you sold the house?
If you're under the exemption and you pay no capital gains, the improvements will not help you on a tax point of view. Obviously, it improves the value of your home and you can sell it for a higher amount.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So having the receipts and having an accurate record of any improvements you've made from the time you bought the home until the time you sold the home is only a consideration if you are going to exceed your capital gain gift, or whatever we want to call that,
deduction. Yeah, exactly. So it's a moot point if you see yourself in the house 5 years, you're not going to exceed it. But there are many people that bought their houses in the 70s and 80s, and maybe they're thinking of moving out of California or downgrading. You know, maybe they're older and they have a 2-story. So they want to sell their home. And a lot of times they've been in their home for decades. And to recreate that, the IRS allows you to recreate that. And it has to be, you know, reasonable. And maybe there's, you know, several remodels done on a bathroom. That could be when you're in the house 40 years. It's just important to keep those receipts. And like I mentioned, the best thing to do is just to have a file folder to throw the paver receipt in there, because it has the date and how much you paid for it. So you can recreate that list.
If you have a client who's in that situation and they didn't or don't have all of those receipts, but they could certainly you know, go back to the people who did the upgrades, or where they bought the whatever, the refrigerator or the countertops.
So what we do in practical terms in that situation, Dan, is we tell the client to list all the improvements that they remember and to put an approximate dollar amount next to the roof, the bathroom, the countertop. And then, you know, adding everything up in Excel, and we will then put that on the tax return to show as an improvement, the lump sum. Now, if the IRS comes back and questions them on that, they have every right to ask for a receipt. And if you can't produce the receipt, they may not allow that improvement deduction. But what I tell people is, if you know you did that, it's an honest answer. You know, it was from 30 years ago, you don't have the receipt, or even 5 years ago, you don't have the receipt. It needs to be reasonable. If you just are on your honor system, you put it on there. For me, I don't have a problem in putting it on there. The problem that I have is when clients pad that number and it's not reasonable, you know, whether it's solar or a roof, and, you know, they're putting crazy numbers on there for those improvements. I cannot argue, you know, to the IRS for that when there's no receipt and it's just not reasonable.
Sure.